Hey, my dear witches, welcome back to the Sober Witch Life Sunshine's Guide to a Mystical and Magical Recovery. Today, we're going to be continuing our discussion of the witch's 13 steps to recovery, and we're almost done because we're on step 12 here today, my dear friends. Uh, as always, we're going to start with a little bit of story time. And, this is something I've talked about in the past, so I don't know whether or not you've heard it, but I'm going to say it again. I started my business in January of 2020, just 4 months into my own recovery. And I started it by giving away free one-card readings as a way to connect to my spirituality and strengthen my gifts, right? I knew after sitting at the AA tables for, 3.5, almost 4 months at that point, that I wanted to lean heavy into my own spiritual beliefs. Um, and I wasn't going to find it at the tables, and I wasn't going to find it in the traditional ways that people normally did, because, I'm a witch. Um, I never intended to be where I'm at today, though. Like when I set down on that path, I just knew I wanted to stay sober. Um, Shortly after doing that, though, I decided I wanted to do another deep dive, another study into the chakras. And one of my favorite ways to re-explore a topic that I'm already familiar with is to teach it, right? Because there's just something that I learn, I just get a deeper breath when I know that I'm actually going to teach. And there's there's a method of like learning when it that actually says that. Um, so I created one of my most powerful healing programs that I have at that particular time, and it's called Balance. We dove into the chakras, we used divination. It was really, really beautiful and um, incredibly healing for me and impactful for a lot of other folks that joined. I continued to teach throughout the years. I created other programs to help and started offering my psychic mediumship services. In the beginning, though, I always kept the psychic stuff and the witchy stuff separate. I actually had two different Facebook pages, not unsimilar to today, now that I think about that. But it became really overwhelming to manage. So I decided to just focus on the psychic stuff, not unlike I just was, right? Like, once again, it kind of became overwhelming. Um, And at some point in the last number of years, Spirit spoke to me and said, "But you're a witch, my dear, and why do you hide it?" Right? There's so many others that need to hear you speak up about it. And that's the truth. Um, and I remember the exact moment I had music on and I was dancing in the living room by myself. And, I was talking to my spirit guides and, I'd connected to my higher self and I got this download. Like, of course you're a high priestess. Of course, you've been leading folks in ritual for, years. You need to stop shying away from referring to yourself as a witch. So I started to share that I was one, but I still tiptoed around it being aligned with some of my purpose. And then this past winter, it was January of 2024, Spirit spoke very clearly and loudly to me again and told me that I needed to be supporting witches in recovery. That was how I connected it to my purpose. And I could feel this fire start to burn inside of me, right? This passion, this like, deep, deep knowing that it was truly my calling. Little did I know, though, that the fire would also be used to burn down everything else that I had built, practically forcing me to start from anew, right? I had no clue. Um, so I did. I ended up leaving corporate at the end of April, and I've been on this path, focusing with this being my number one priority since. Why am I sharing all of this with you? It's because step 12 is all around embracing your magical path and using it to help support other witches in recovery, right? Celebrate the milestones, continue your own spiritual growth by continuing to evolve as a witch in recovery and supporting other witches in their journey, right? And I know that that may seem a little bit daunting, right? Helping others when you don't even feel solid in your own footing. Uh, I'm going to go back to that story that I shared in the beginning around kind of how I chose to like do that deep dive again, right? There's a really beautiful thing that happens when we take what we know or are kind of knowing or what we're even learning and start to help share that with other people. There's just something beautiful about it. And it's actually, like I said, it's a known way of learning is to teach, you know? Um, and I'll share with you, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to go balls to the walls like I did and start building out programs and all of this kind of stuff. Like you don't have to do that. You know, my mission and my passion is to help as many witches in recovery as I possibly can, right? That really is it. You know, I mean, even just right now, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's so important to me, right? It's so incredibly important. And the truth is, you may already be doing this, right? You may be in Facebook groups or Reddit groups about witchcraft, maybe sharing your own story. You may still be at the AA tables or maybe Smart Recovery or Dharma Recovery or whatever, and speaking your truth and not shying away from the fact that you are a witch and that's part of your spiritual path. You may even be telling others of your recovery journey and just answering questions when they ask. And if you're not, it's as simple as just starting to let others know that you're on a recovery journey. I know some of you may not be ready to come out of the closet, and some of you it may not even be safe. The reality is we do live in a world that can still cast a lot of judgment on those of us that identify as a witch. But for those of you that have hesitated and you can safely come out of that closet, right? And that might mean you have to face some fear, right? To do so, I encourage you. There are so many of us witches that are out here that need to know we're not alone. And step 12 is doing just that. So, from one witch to another, from one witch in recovery to another, I'd encourage you to start sharing your story so that others find the courage that they need to step on their own path. That's it, my dear friends. That being said, much love from me to all of you. Until next time.